The air in the mountain clinic was always thick with the scent of dried herbs and quiet industry. Sariel, 16 years old, with sharp, intelligent dark eyes and long, flowing dark hair, moved with innate precision. Her hands, small yet incredibly skilled, deftly ground herbs in a wooden mortar and pestle, creating a rhythmic, comforting sound. This was her world, a serene existence defined by the ancient scrolls and shelves of dried plants that filled the rustic clinic. Her grandfather, a stern but kind man with a long white beard, often watched her work. He'd murmur to himself about her uncommon gift for healing, a rare talent that went beyond simple knowledge, as if recalling past ailments only her touch could resolve. Their quiet routine, however, was shattered by the sudden, jarring sound of heavy boots. Two Emperor's guards, imposing figures in ornate, gleaming golden armor, appeared in the clinic's doorway, their presence a stark, unwelcome contrast to the tranquil space. The lead guard, his face unyielding beneath his helmet, addressed Sariel and her grandfather. His words were polite but cold, devoid of warmth. Sariel was requested by the Emperor for a special project. It was a summons, not an invitation, and the unspoken threat hung heavy in the air. Sariel's grandfather stepped forward, his voice cracking with emotion as he pleaded, protesting her removal. But his pleas were futile. Sariel glanced at him, a silent farewell in her dark eyes, acknowledging his helplessness. She was gently but firmly escorted from the clinic. As she walked, she turned her head for one last lingering look at her humble home, the familiar mountains, and her grandfather's sorrowful face before being guided towards a lavish imperial carriage waiting outside. Inside the richly decorated carriage, Sariel sat stiffly. She gazed out the window as cherry blossoms and familiar mountain paths blurred into a receding landscape. Her expression was a mix of wide-eyed awe at the opulence surrounding her and a deep-growing dread of her newfound captivity. The carriage finally halted before the colossal imperial palace gates. Sariel stepped out, her head slowly tilting upwards as she gazed at the sheer scale and dazzling grandeur of the palace, its golden roofs gleaming under the sun, an overwhelming, intimidating sight. She was led through vast, echoing courtyards and labyrinthine ornate halls. She passed silent, watchful palace staff whose expressions were unreadable. The transition from her simple life to this immense, glittering world was stark, a cold reality. Her new chamber was lavish, adorned with rich silks and intricate carvings, grand yet impersonal. She stood in the center, slowly turning her head, a sense of isolation already settling upon her. Two silent maids, dressed in fine, understated silks, were introduced as her personal attendants, their eyes constantly observing her every move. Days bled into weeks. Sariel tried to occupy herself, meticulously arranging the rare herbs and exotic plants that had been provided, her hands moving with purpose. Yet she would often find herself staring blankly out a window or slowly flipping through an unfamiliar book, the quiet passage of time emphasizing her growing restlessness in this opulent prison. She often sat by a large, arched palace window, looking out at the manicured gardens below. Her hands, usually busy with healing and work, were restless, clenching and unclenching in her lap, her expression reflecting a deep yearning and frustration at the lack of purpose. The weather outside began to mirror Sariel's inner turmoil. The sky darkened dramatically, distant lightning flashed, illuminating colossal clouds, and thunder rumbled, physically shaking the palace's foundations. The visual chaos of the storm outside mirrored a rising tension within the palace. Then, a sharp, insistent knock echoed at her chamber door. It swung open to reveal the stern-faced eunuch from earlier, his demeanor urgent as he delivered the long-awaited summons. The eunuch led Sariel through another complex, dimly lit labyrinth of palace hallways. Shadows played on the ornate walls, emphasizing the secretive and complex nature of her new environment. Sariel walked with a sense of anticipation and mild trepidation, her head occasionally turning to take in her new surroundings. They finally arrived at a grand, dimly lit chamber. The air within was thick and heavy. In the center, a beautiful young woman, Princess Lyra, lay unnaturally still and unconscious on a gilded divan. The only subtle movement was the flickering of distant candlelight, creating an atmosphere of grave tension. Two powerful men stood grim-faced and still over the divan. One was Prince Kyle, the Emperor's son, handsome but with a troubled, anxious expression. The other was Lord Valerius, the Emperor's spy master, whose calculating eyes missed nothing. They turned their heads sharply toward Sariel as she entered, their expression a mix of urgency and scrutiny. Sariel knelt swiftly beside Princess Lyra without hesitation. Her hands moved expertly and gently as she checked Princess Lyra's pulse and forehead, her sharp eyes scanning methodically for any visible injuries or signs of common illness. Her brow was furrowed in deep concentration. As Sariel continued her examination, her keen sense of smell picked up a faint, sweet yet subtly off scent clinging around the princess. Her eyes widened slightly, and her nostrils almost imperceptibly flared. A cold dread washed over her expression as recognition dawned, the distinct aroma of a rare, potent sleeping agent. Sariel stood tall and confident, facing directly Prince Kyle and Lord Valerius. She declared, "She has been poisoned." She concisely explained it was a poison-inducing deep, dreamless sleep, meant to incapacitate, not kill. The two men's faces registered shock and anger at her pronouncement, while Sariel's own expression held a newfound sense of purpose.
"I can create an antidote," Sariel stated, her voice firm, "but I'll need the sunstone orchid. It's a key ingredient." In Princess Lyra's opulent chamber, Sariel stood, her arm extended in a deliberate gesture towards the still unconscious princess. Prince Canal and Lord Valerius listened intently, their faces etched with concern. Lord Valerius shifted his weight, a concerned frown on his face, as he spoke, gesturing slightly, indicating the perilous journey required for the orchid. Sariel, however, stood firm, her expression resolute as she reiterated the urgency and lack of alternatives, her body language unwavering. Prince Canal, with a furious whisper, reflecting his concern for Princess Lyra, immediately turned decisively towards Lord Valerius, giving a strong, immediate order to dispatch a team for the Sunstone Orchid, regardless of the costs or danger. Even before the team left, Sariel began her own investigation. She systematically moved around a cleared section of the princess's opulent chamber, transforming it into a makeshift laboratory. She was meticulously arranging her grinding tools, vials, and herbs on a table amidst the ornate palace furnishings, her movements precise and focused. Sariel's keen eyes and hands meticulously inspected every surface of the chamber. She carefully ran her finger along the edges of discreet air vents, traced patterns on a water pitcher, and examined ornate teacups. Dust motes drifted visibly in the ambient light. Her eyes darted keenly across each surface. She then moved to the palace service corridors, talking gently but intently with 2 or 3 palace maids. The maids exchanged nervous glances and subtly leaned in to whisper amongst themselves, their body language conveying discomfort and revealing hushed rumors of jealousy and resentment among the other concubines. Through careful questioning, Sariel uncovered information about the powerful house of Ishikawa and their ambition for their daughter to become empress. A subtly fluttering banner bearing their stylized, sharp-edged crest in a distant palace hall, or a portrait of their proud, ambitious daughter, symbolized their political machinations against Princess Lyra, fueling their desire for power within the imperial court. Sariel returned to question a specific young maid who seemed unusually nervous earlier and was the last to serve the princess tea. The maid fidgeted her hands and avoided eye contact, subtly shifting her weight. Her nervousness was clearly visible through her body language, raising Sariel's suspicions. While re-examining a small, ornamental box on the princess's vanity, Sariel's hand carefully reached into and touched the inside. A faint, almost invisible, metallic residue gleamed subtly on her fingertips in the light, highlighting her discovery. Then she stood still, a look of realization dawning. A wisp of smoke curling from a smoking incense stick, combined with the previously discovered metallic residue, created a clear mental connection. The incense had masked the subtle poison. Sariel then looked thoughtfully into the distance, a slight frown on her brow, realizing the nervous maid was merely a simple pawn, too unsophisticated to have concocted such a complex poison. Following a hunch, Sariel ventured into the vast imperial gardens. She moved cautiously, her head turning slowly from side to side, her sharp eyes scanning the foliage. They led her to a secluded, almost hidden patch of night-blooming jasmine, its white flowers standing out amidst the greenery. The scene was bathed in soft, ethereal moonlight. Near the hidden jasmine patch, Sariel's hand carefully reached down to pick up a single, small, empty glass vial half hidden among the foliage. A faint, telltale metallic scent visibly emanated from the vial, confirming its connection to her earlier discovery. Amidst Sariel's ongoing investigation, a team of royal guards, looking weary but triumphant, entered a palace receiving area, their heavy steps echoing. They carefully presented the rare sunstone orchid, glowing and luminous, to Sariel. Their posture showed exhaustion from their arduous mission. Just as the sunstone orchid arrived, a palace guard strode quickly toward Sariel with a respectful but urgent message, gesturing with his head towards the direction of the imperial library. Sariel's expression turned serious as her eyes narrowed, knowing the significance of the summons from Lord Valerius. Sariel then found herself in the vast, imposing imperial library, facing Lord Valerius, who was seated at a large, intricately carved wooden desk. Towering shelves of scrolls loomed around them. Valerius's hand gestured subtly as he delivered his stern warning, informing her that her extensive questioning had made some people uncomfortable. Sariel's face, however, remained calm but resolute. She spoke directly and clearly to Lord Valerius, her jaw set firmly, stating her professional duty. "I am a healer, my lord. I must understand the cause of the sickness to prevent it from happening again." Lord Valerius, his calculating eyes now hold a hint of revelation, leaned slightly forward, a smirk playing on his lips as he shared his own findings. "We believe the House of Ishikawa is behind this," he stated, and even mentioned their contact in the imperial court who was an expert on poisons. As Sariel listened intently, her expression subtly shifting as she processed the new information, a powerful realization hit her. Her eyes widened slightly, a flash of understanding crossing her features. The pieces clicked into place, and her previous kidnapping now made sense as a calculated recruitment. A subtle mental montage of her initial abduction flashed rapidly in her mind's eye. Valerius hadn't taken her prisoner, he had recruited her, needing someone impartial to solve the palace's complex mysteries. Armed with the sunstone orchid and the crucial information from Lord Valerius, Sariel worked with intense focus back in Princess Lyra's chamber. Her hands moved quickly and confidently, her fingers expertly mixing ingredients and pouring liquids from one vial to another using the freshly delivered sunstone orchid. Light caught the swirling liquids in the vials, emphasizing her skill and intense focus as she created the potent antidote.